Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. Today I'm going to get into some more Conclave Arcana card analysis, and I have about 10 cards that I'm going to do more of a deep dive that I've prepared notes on. And so we're going to look at card by card. They've been released in Discord, they've been updated on some of their stats, or I've just recently observed something that I didn't before. And so I do have intentionality with this video. You may have heard me talk about these cards before, not in this way. So if that sounds interesting, stick around. Otherwise, check out the next video. Let's get it. Okay, so I'm going to go over to Discord and this is the eye candy window, and I'm going to scroll through and just see what they've posted recently. This is all from Blaze in the eye candy window, and I'm going to skip through a bunch that I'm not going to feature. I've talked about some of these cards already. They're cool. You know, I've got a lot. I think cards like this are awesome. Ashen is not one of my ones that I want to feature today. Bristle. Buttercup is the first one I actually want to talk about. Buttercup is I think this card is going to be pretty meaningful for a lot of reasons. Let's talk about it. Buttercup Mauler is a Earth Splinter monster, and melee, of course, which means that it's going to be subject to thorn damage, or is it? It has deflect. So thorn damage with the green team, you know, probably brings your nightmares to mind with tofu, and so is this a tofu counter in some sense, right? You're enabling melee, and it's a large damage output, which is, you know, sometimes you end up tickling backline monsters with your sneak or with your opportunity, especially if they have shield or if they have, you know, different mitigators. And then you end up dying too fast, especially with only 6 hit points. But again, deflect. And so I think the deflect is a really big deal here. Plus the camo makes it, you know, hard to find. And the sneak damage means that it can be versatile from the middle to the back line of your team, meaning you got a 5-bomb damage output where it can be buried in one of your safer locations. Yes, there's reveal, so the camo becomes maybe less reliable. We'll see how often reveal gets played, but nevertheless, this is reveal, and reveal has an opportunity to remove camo from one of your opponent's monsters per every round. And so I think this is very synergistic in terms of where it can be played, how it can be played, and how it will sort of help itself as well as help your team. And I think it is a bit of an answer. In fact, I would argue it's like a pretty large answer to some of the tofu problems. Tofu, you know, would have answered this with thorns. That's not going to work. Tofu would have answered this with maybe taunting me. I'm thinking specifically of Iziar. The thing about Iziar is that it has void, and so if you can bring silence to your team, and I know you're going to play tofu, you can hamstring me. I can't use melee because you have thorns, and I'm not going to use magic because you have a void monster that's going to taunt me, and maybe you bring silence. This combo with tofu is certainly quite powerful, and I think we look at a card like Buttercup Mauler, and I think we begin to see some answers because it opens the door for melee because of the deflect, and it's sneak so it can be hidden away from its damage, and it's camo so it's not going to be exposed, and it's revealing some of my opponent's camo monsters, which is always helpful too. So I think it's a very strong card. I haven't seen that one yet, and again, common, right? So the commons from the starter packs are going to be really, they actually are proving statistically, in my opinion, a lot of stats for a low, what will be a really inexpensive card because of the starter packs coming from Conclave. Okay, let's get the next one. Caravan Guard, great card, already talked about it. Cavewise Wayfinder is the next one I want to talk about today. Cavewise Wayfinder, what I've noticed today, or what grabbed my attention this morning, was this. Ambush with a relatively high melee damage output for a relatively low melee mana cost. That's all great. And there's lots of ways that, by the way, Fire can enjoy a buff on this, right? You can get Piercing and 2 more speed from Yasik. You could get Enrage from the Dwarf Summoner, the Fire Dwarf Summoner. You could get 1 more damage output from Tarsa, and 1 more hit point, by the way. There's just a lot of ways. There's Pyre, there's all of this is so synergistic for a lot of the summoners on the Fire team. That's one big piece about it. But then also it's got, like, from a Rebellion / Modern perspective with the Conclave editions, the ambush is huge. That's a good speed with 4 damage, and it's also gonna, like I say, it's probably not gonna be 4, it's gonna be 5, probably. And then the Reckless that it has here, this is Reckless, and that symbolism has changed as well. It's more of a like a shooting star type imagery now with a big swinging momentum. And so Reckless will cause damage to adjacent units. I really think this is kind of built to be a main tank with these number of hit points in this void, and the enrage and the melee damage. All that leans towards your first line monster. But I actually think this card will shine in the back line in those rule sets where melee can attack from any position. I think it's an acceptable frontline tank for sure, but I think it'll shine when it can be buried between other monsters that are going to proc the Painforge benefit, because this is Reckless. Reckless is going to cause damage to adjacent units, and so this will be a reliable way in those rule sets where melee can attack from any position to inflict damage on Painforge monsters. And which monsters are Painforge? Every single gnome, because of Razi Clangtrap. Razi Clangtrap is one of the new summoners from the Splinter, and you're going to bring in, this is a Razi Clangtrap is a Death Splinter summoner, but she calls all gnomes, and so Cave-wise Wayfinder will come from the red to fight for the black, and that is really impactful. That's really impactful. So Reckless is the big deal here, but Ambush is great, and yes, it's got good stats, and it's a really interesting kit for a lot of reasons, even from a main tank perspective. But that angle on it is kind of basic. The real niche is going to be when you can fight this from anywhere and you can leverage the Reckless. And so that's what I wanted to say about Cave-wise Wayfinder. We'll grab the next one, which is going to be Vicious Giraffe. Deep Delver, no. Quick side note, Deep Delver, I didn't make any side notes, but there's about 2 or maybe 3 of these new corrupted healings. Those are going to be obviously super powerful, so important. And so always look for the threshold where you're going to unlock that ability. It's too powerful. It's such a great ability, especially in, equalizer rule sets, or even in survival. I find it so effective. So I don't have any particular thoughts except for that. You just look for those, every single corrupted healer you can find. Next thing I wanted to say about the Filthy Scavenger here, again, a gnome. And so you're going to have Painforge on a card like this. It could be partnered with Razi Clangtrap, that last card I showed you from the Fire Splinter, which will have Reckless, and it's going to enable this thing to be doing more damage. I don't really think that the story of Filthy Scavenger is longevity, though. And so I don't know if I really care that it's a gnome or that it can receive Painforge, except where Equalizer is going to raise up this hit point pool. I just think he's not going to be around long enough. The cool thing with this card that I've noted before is the melee and the opportunity synergize really well. Plus the damage with the ambush is pretty, this is substantial. The speed is the limiter, but I would say in my notes I put Bloodline Tribute. My apologies. This little symbolism with this kind of shooting star is Bloodline Tribute, which means it's going to proc all gnomes. And I've not really understood the significance of that until I'm more deep diving on these cards now, and I'm seeing how many cool cards are gnomes. And when Razi Clangtrap can bring in 5 gnomes, 6 gnomes on a team, this is going to be very, very meaningful. Also with Death, you can use it with Lorcus. You could give it Life Leech. You could, trample with opportunity is pretty crazy. And so I like this card a lot for a lot of reasons. It seems flexible. That's one of the words I want to say for this card. But I really think the Bloodline Tribute cards are going to be uniquely powerful. And I don't think we can fully understand that until we get our hands on the set and explore how many synergies that we aren't yet expecting from the bloodlines. Like, how many gnomes do you really own? How can you pull them together? How many dwarves, etc.? How many Ulans? And what sort of new synergies are made possible? And then, man, it's like a multiplier happens with what's possible as you add Painforge, multiplying statistics, Bloodline Tribute, increasing statistics, and it feels like it's going to become exponential. Vicious Giraffe, I've spoken about this card before, but today when I was looking at it, there was something that really grabbed me. And so I don't know if I missed this before, but this is Shield Ward. And so Shield Ward is a big deal. It applies shield to the monster in front of it. And before now, the only one we had was the Mana Ward. This little symbol means that he gives a shield to the person in front of it. And this card is awesome for that reason alone. Unfortunately, because of design, it was provided at level 1, so all you need is 1 BCX. And it doesn't have reach, it doesn't have opportunity, it doesn't have sneak, and so it's otherwise useless. It's a buffer that doesn't really do anything in most scenarios or circumstances, in my opinion. I have it, I like it, I want it, I think you should have it, but I'm saying it doesn't synergize in the same ways that Vicious Giraffe does. So this, at the highest levels, will get that same ability, but here's the thing. thing, it has reach. And so from the second position with a good amount of hit points, by the way, so it's a solid second line hitter with great speed, with minimal damage, but guess what? It has shatter, so that makes up for it because big armor is gonna fall away because of the one impact. The 2 is irrelevant. And then it's got Painforge. There's ways that it's being damaged. It's gonna proc that Painforge. I actually want to see a battle. So you got Life Leech and Affliction from the Summoner. The Painforge is going to, I believe the Thorns over here on this monster is going to proc the damage from Painforge, which is going to buff his stats. I think, let's find out. This is important. I'm almost exclusively watching that card right now, just the Vicious Giraffe. So he did 2 damage. Okay, so that didn't hit his hit points. It just broke his armor. And so no, it didn't. The Thorns didn't proc the Painforge, but will its next hit proc Painforge? Right there, Resurgence, Painforge. Resurgence. So there's a damage modifier that's happening from Resurgence. I don't understand what Resurgence is. It's not any of the visible abilities that I'm aware of. So I think it's a rule set that's happening in this context. There is poison inflicted on it, but I don't think that's the same thing. I've never seen this word Resurgence before, except for right now. And so I'm trying to understand this. But whatever it is, it seems to be proccing injury because it's saying bracket Painforge here. It's not saying it elsewhere. It's just saying it there. He had 7 hit points before that happened. He goes to 6. It didn't increase his damage output. The poison damage took away 2 hit points, and that did proc the Painforge increase of damage output. So now he's doing 4, which is huge. But the Thorns, I want to see Thorns. So that's a Thorn damage right there, and it didn't increase. Okay. That Resurgence did. See, that Resurgence right there, -1 hit point, procced a melee buff. The first one didn't. We're at 3. I think it's because he didn't actually lose a hit point. So he did lose a hit point and it didn't go up. Beats me, boys and girls. He got a buff there from the Painforge from the poison, and he's going to get another one from the Resurgence that ends at this round. Let's watch it again. He's at 4. The Thorns didn't buff him. He's going to get a Resurgence right now, or right after this round in a minute. It's going to go from 4 to 5 damage. Yeah, see. So, and then he lost 2 from poison, and he went to 6 damage. Painforge is pretty crazy. This guy started with 2 damage output. And I think secondarily, the real issue for him is that he's very logically from the second position, providing, because reach, and he's got good hit points, so Painforge is going to work for a while. Plus, he's like a decent secondary tank because of his hit points. Plus, he's providing shield ward to whoever's in the front line. And I think all that is a very good synergy. Like, I think it's a very strong synergy. And so, yeah, let's pop out of this one here. We'll come back to our notes in Discord. I think this card is much better than I even originally thought, and I thought it was really good to begin with. It's a common. I think the shield, in part shield to my neighboring monster, is so worth it, and it works so well from the reach. I think that alone makes this card desirable at the highest levels. But the Painforge clearly is impactful. We just saw him get 6 damage output. That's a 3 damage buff after Lorcas, right? Lorcas gave him 1 damage buff, and there's 3 other damages that he received throughout the match. And the shatter is potentially gigantic. Like, there's so many armored monsters. So Vicious Giraffe, really a must-have in my opinion. A lot of these cards are worth talking about, but we have talked about them already. I think they're really, really exceptional. This card I almost wanted to get into, but I didn't make any notes on, because I don't want to cover every card again. I really want to cover the ones I think are going to be the absolute most impactful. Same with Moribund Aerobait. Almost, did I do a deep dive on her? Almost. Some of these are really, really good, but others of them are beyond good. I think they're next level. Let me see here. Umbral Elemental is the next one I want to talk about. Umbral Elemental, magic monster, taunt, with the I think it's called Deflect Shroud. And so it imparts shroud to the neighboring, or deflect to the neighboring units, right? Yeah, Deflect Shroud. So Deflection Shroud, at the start of the battle, adjacent units gain deflect. Okay, that's what I thought. And so when we come back over here and we see that this is going to provide that to its neighboring units, and we recognize that it's a magic monster, and we remember that there's a magic only rule set in the game, and it's got silent or void, and it's got swiftness with, 3 speed. Okay, that's not really that fast, but it really call it 4 speed. And then there's space for blinds and other swiftness and other slows. And so the taunt is going to make this your target. And if you're thinking about making the best magic only team in modern, where you're no longer going to have Immortalis, I really like this because you're taunting the monsters. And blast damage becomes irrelevant because this is going to provide deflect to the 2 neighboring monsters. So you put this in the second position. In the front line, you're going to have a fast phase magic monster maybe. And then in the third spot, you're going to have Ruin Arcanist is what I'm saying. Ruin Arcanist is going to put phase on Umbral Elemental. And then with enough speed or blind modifiers, this is going to be an evasive taunt monster. Taunt with blind alone would be 15%, plus the speed differentials you're going to create logically. But again, can we do that? Yeah, we can. The Ruin Arcanist is a card that at level 4 is going to provide you Phase Ward, and I think this is going to be pretty much a must-have. Turns out now it's already a very expensive card. Certain cards are really shooting to the moon. Fizbo, I just showed a second ago. This card is gone. This card used to be $3, $4, $5 per BCX. Is now currently $34 per BCX. That is wild. I kind of don't know what happened there. Yes, it's the tank heal and the afflict is interesting, but that's a side note. So Ruin Arcanist at level 4 is going to provide the phase ward. Why is that important? Because blue works with black, and when it does, I think it's going to make black be the magic only team. I just showed you the Taunt Umbral Elemental with a strong 3 damage output with a 9, which is very reasonable. It's got a good amount of hit points. So if they end up bringing an Archer / magic, right, or something like that, then you can deal with it because of the armor. But also there's certain rule sets where weak magic, and so the armor would be nice from those perspectives too. Weak magic, magic only, very interesting. Or even just forget about magic only. I like this card for a lot of reasons, even outside of that rule set, especially in weak magic, where you get the armor, you get the hit points, and man, Ruin Arcanist right here to impart phase, and yes, blinds and swiftness or slows to let that taunt do so much more work. And this just synergizes so well, like the void. With the taunt, with your ability obviously to bring in silences, etc. And so I really like the Umbral Elemental, and I wanted to note also it's an epic, and the epics are going to be the ones that are going to be the least printed probably, because I do think starter packs are going to sell meaningfully, which means there'll be lots of commons and rares. Legendary packs will sell because people want legendaries, but epics are the one thing we can't pick by ourselves. So yeah, we'll get them through regular packs, but it'll probably be a lower print rate than we've seen before on epics. And so I think that's an interesting note. So many good cards. I've talked about most of those other ones, and I don't have anything necessarily meaningful to say on them. Virid Venolancer, I do want to talk about. It's an orc, so that's interesting because remember we have the summoner that can enable all orcs. It's called, okay, so it's a water splinter summoner, and his name is Gorgug the Endless. Water summoner Gorgug, and he provides enrage. And so that's the summoner that can bring together orcs, and this is Virid Venolancer is an orc. I don't think the kit is overwhelming in any sense. You got 2 damage for 5 mana, but poison is it adds up a lot. 50% chance to proc poison, which is 2 damage at the end of every round. So I probably like the kit enough to play it even without any of the other bells and whistles. but especially for 5 mana, and it's got a good amount of resiliency, etc. But obviously, the orc connection is a big piece of what I like about it. Why? Because Night Stalker is one of the best orcs in the game. Night Stalker has blast damage, execute, and sneak, and the one weakness this card has, if speed is a little bit of its limiter. If my opponent slows me, I will miss and miss and miss, and then if I miss, I don't win. But clearly with blast and execute, this thing is a monster. However, it only has 5 hit points. At the highest levels, it had 5 hit points. 2 hit points at the lowest level. So this thing is weak. Maybe not anymore. Maybe because of Virid Venolancer with the shield ward. It can be partnered as an orc, because they're both orcs, to provide shield ward or shield onto my Night Stalker. Why is that important? Because, like I said earlier, the existing shield ward, the mana ward, but the shield ward card, the mana warden card, which provides shield ward, is a melee monster with no functionality from the back line. So then we feature the Virid Venolancer that has poison and magic damage, which is a range attack, can fire from the back lines and has a decent amount of hit points and armor, even decent speed even, and then Pede, which is never a bad thing. It just synergizes better from the back lines. It's going to enable a more optimal use of shield ward. That ability that is so helpful. Yes, even I should even note this Mana Warden is a fire team, and Night Stalker can play with it in many scenarios. But again, this card's just not as functional. And so for those reasons, I think Virid Venolancer is actually worth noting, worth following, worth getting excited about. And again, it's a common. Let's keep going. Ooh, Warwall Juggernaut. I have talked about this card before, but I don't know that I fully understood the impact, and I want to feature it a bit more here. So check this out. It's a reach monster with a huge hit point pool. That's by itself so significant. So significant. And good melee damage from the second line. Not great, maybe, but good. But guess what? Armor strike with 5 bomb. 5 armor, just base, by the way, just before any buffs. You can bring Product and turn that into a nuclear bomb. So Warwall Juggernaut is big and powerful, and the armor won't break necessarily as it's attacking from the second position, because it isn't necessarily being attacked from the second position. If it's running into thorns, it might be losing armor, but there's a lot of situations where it will attack from the second and it will not lose armor, meaning its armor strike will be persisting across round 1, round 2, round 3, until probably your front line goes down, and then Warwall becomes your front line and that armor starts to fall apart. So great synergy in terms of the reach with the armor strike, with a good amount of damage, all for 9 mana. I love all that. That is all very meaningful. But then it's got Painforge. And so Painforge +1 power when damaged by poison or burning or hit by an ally. I think this is going to become a real nuclear sort of option. The possibility from blue, with Elias Max Pruitt, by the way, to really leverage armor strike in a crazy new way. That's what I see from Warwall. Not that you need Elias Max Pruitt EMP to enable the armor strike, because he's got it. But from the reach perspective, he's got it. He's safe, he's secure. He's doing 4 damage, which is a lot, plus 5 damage, plus 6 damage, because there would be another armor from EMP, and any protects you're going to bring. And the Painforge is going to bring up the damage output on the melee, not anywhere else, unless, of course, you're able to bring an Uland with Bloodline Tribute, of which there are some, and then you'd get plus stat bonuses across everything, which this stuff gets so complicated if I go down that road. Just suffice it to say, I think this is like a nuclear option, and we're going to see more from EMP today. In this video, I think you're going to really start seeing me really, I'm pretty convinced EMP is going to be the new meta, because I mean, enabling the massive damage we're showing here and seeing it again later with opportunity monsters or sneak or range, things that can fire from the back line, plus EMP could put it on the front line with an amazing monster that maybe has Protect. There's ways to think this through that will be so crazy. Okay, so Warwall Juggernaut looks like a nuclear option, and looks like one more way Elias Max Pruitt is going to be moving towards more and more meta. There he is, EMP. Melee and armor, piercing and armor strike, or repair and cleanse, both of which are very reasonable. This card price has been shooting up. This is, I think, the big winner I'm seeing so far from Conclave. Let's keep going. Let's go back to Discord. So Warwall Juggernaut to me, and again, Epic, one of the more rare ones, I think. This card is going to be, in my opinion, it's one of the best ones I've seen so far in terms of how it synergizes and how well its kit seems to theoretically work together. I love it. I want it. I need it. Zargul, interesting, but not going to talk about it. Okay, let's keep going. There's another one of, quick note, Inept Healer. That's another one of the corrupted healers. Gotta have it. Gotta have it. Look at this card here. Okay, so I think we are approaching done. Taylor Swift here is the next one. Inspire with melee. Very synergistic. Reach with melee. Fine. Snare, 100% chance to hit flyers. Great. Is it, overpowered? No. Is any of that overpowered? No. It's very synergistic though. And for 3 mana, that's one of the things I've noticed here. I don't think I've talked about Taylor Swift at all before this moment, but I love everything about it. And then 3 damage becomes 4 because of Inspire. That's interesting for 3 damage. Plus the Inspire is not just her, but everybody on the team. It's so good. That's so good. And piercing on top of that works perfectly, because picture you have 1 armor and you don't have pierce. You slap that, you break it, and that's that. Well, guess what? With 1 more Inspire, Taylor Swift on my team is going to kill your Taylor Swift, right? You given the opportunity. It's a reach situation, so maybe not. But there's only 5 hit points here. This is a very strong secondary monster. Its kit works so well. It's so synergistic, and it's neutral. So the flexibility there. And one last point on this. This is what really made me talk about Taylor Swift here. 3 mana is crazy for all this, but no, that's not the point. The thing I wanted to say is this is an elf, and elves will partner with, what's her name? I've got it here. Kalia Silverleaf, the new Bloodline tribute, Bloodline Dominion Summoner. And that's the summoner that will call all of the elves. And why is that important? Because they can get Execute. Execute in conjunction with 4 damage with piercing is probably going to proc some kills. Like, that is going to lead to some crazy stuff. And yeah, I think that's going to be really, really powerful. Now, she's a bit slow, but she's only 3 mana. This card is very cool and very powerful and very seemingly synergistic. Yes, it's not going to work in like a 99 mana match. I'd really rather pick a lot of other things at those higher levels. Something with more hit points, for instance, something with maybe some more support things. But I think this is a bit of a heavy hitter for those low mana matches, and it's going to work in under 4 manas a lot, in low mana matches a lot. Forget about Little League rule set. Yes, Little League rule set, but I mean, what about those 12 or 15 or 20 mana rule sets? I bet this one really is a 60+% win rate in those contexts. Great card, synergistic, logical, want it. Okay, next, let's see what else we got. Next one is Leolin Sifu, and I think this card is very interesting too. This is another piece that I want to point back to Elias Max Pruitt. Life team. Big armor monster. 7 armor at the highest levels, but it even has 6 at the lowest levels. And why is that important? Again, Elias Max Pruitt could give this thing armor strike. That's pretty darn interesting. Now, it has a lot going on for it, but let's just talk about it from that angle for now, because I think this is so synergistic with EMP. So it's life, it's got that, and all of that with Execute too, by the way. Like 4 damage is meaningful with Execute, but then you add 7 damage with an Execute, and that will proc the armor strike Execute, by the way. So the question then is it going to hit Pierce? Like, if it doesn't have Pierce, it's not going to punch through. Yeah, Execute is so much better with Pierce. But I would say this kit is great. You got, this one is called, I forget what it's called, but you get True Strike out of that one. So, sorry, True Damage, rather. True Damage meaning if I hit you for 4, I'm going to do 4, even if you have shield. If I hit you 7, I'm going to do 7, even if you have shield. That's a huge deal. And then True Strike is great because it only has the 3 speed, but make that 4 speed because of swiftness. The Execute here is the big gigantic deal. like execute in conjunction with these two, and again, all partnered with life. I just think life is going to go nuclear with those large armor strikes. And so I would put armor strike on this guy using EMP. Leolin in the first, that makes a lot of sense actually. Leolin in the first, and then Warwall Juggernaut in the second with the reach. And then you got the massive armor strike bomb on Warwall, and then you're gonna put a massive armor strike on Leolin. I would probably bring a taunt monster in the back lines like an Iziar to distract away from these massive armor, attacks. And I think that would be very powerful, especially with his execute. And that's not the end of this story, by the way. And one last note on this, epic again. These epics are really, really good. I haven't covered Desolation yet, I don't think. I don't know if I did, I didn't really take it seriously. Archery, range attack, I don't necessarily care about or think about. Plus 11 mana is pretty high. I do wonder if this is going to be a bit of a disqualifier sometimes. But having said all that, how about this? Check this out. 5 bomb is very huge, but then piercing makes it so much more significant. If I'm not going to get distracted or impeded by one little armor, I'm going to rip through it due to piercing. That's a big deal. And then wing break with that means that it's actually going to be more. I think it's a 50% buff. Let's see, what is wing break? Always targets the first flying enemy unit regardless of position, ability, or rule set, and then +2 damage if the target's flying. Okay, it's not like a 50% modifier, but it's a +2 damage. So going from 5 to 7 with piercing is crazy. It's crazy. And then it's got good strong speed and good sustainability. And then it's a dragon. So guess who it can work with? Nidhogger. Why is that important? How about 2 more speed and execute? With the piercing, with the 7 bomb or the 5 bomb if it's on a flyer. That's pretty wild. I think that's an interesting thing, but I think this is even more important. Blast. Are you kidding me? Let's look that back again. Let's call that back again. So 5 damage with piercing and blast. The blast damage on the neighboring units will pierce too, by the way. That is potentially insane. And the wing break. I actually don't know what will transpire if I shoot a flyer and the next ones are not flyers. What if I shoot a flyer and the next 2 monsters that are affected by my blast damage are also flyers? I don't know what happens in that situation. That could be nuts. What if it's 2 base damage to each of them because they're all flyers, and piercing damage, and 7, right? Like that is potentially insane. And so Desolation, if I stopped there, would be worth our excitement. But then Enrage with 5 speed can make it 8 speed, which if it takes any damage is going to go just so fast, and it's not missing anymore, and you're probably missing it. And by the way, because of wing break in archery only rule set, this can go into your first position, and even though it doesn't have close range, it will fire at the back line. That's what wing break does. Wing break always targets the first flyer. Okay, assuming there's another flyer, assuming there's a flyer in the back line. And so I think that's a kind of a go round on how close range can be enabled from the front line. And this is a bit of a tank, right? If that's true, we'll see with time, because I don't necessarily know if what I just said is going to be entirely accurate. But I do know when this Night Reaper is in the front line, it will fire at the back line if there's a flyer back there. And so my question then would be, does that mean this range monster can fire from the first position if there's a target in the back lines 2 steps away? I think the answer would be yes. And then that's not even all of it, by the way. But let's sit on that for another second, because in Rage with 5 speed and flying would mean 8 speed and flying, which means you aren't hitting me. If I brought any other swiftness, any other blind, you're not hitting me. And then you could put how about that Rune Arcanist that we talked about earlier? Put a phase warden on this thing, right? Rune Arcanist putting a phase on this card with that setup. Wow. And that's not even all of it, because by the way, it has spite. Spite, when defeated, 100% chance to counterattack. So that is something else too, by the way. You're not counting on a card like this dying. Spite is not going to be the reason you play a card like this. But you got to admit, especially if you played it with Nidhogger, especially if you give it Blast, especially if you put it in the back line and they retaliated and killed you, or they snuck attack and killed you, and you got to do another nuclear blast bomb on them, that is crazy. This card might be absolutely insane, and I didn't give it a second thought before this morning. And so, Desolation, check it out, think about it. Okay, I think I have 2 more that I want to talk about. Yep. No, 3 more. No, I talked about Philly Scavenger already. I didn't do. So 2 more. Lucky long shot here. So 2 range attacks, magic and melee, or sorry, magic and range. Neither of them particularly high, but that's 3 mana. 3 mana for those. I would say that I'm noticing a couple amazing things. Weapon Trainer with 2 trainings. This card is immediately better than the neutral one. What's that one called again? Moxium Rebel. Moxium Rebel at the highest level is gonna, at the top 2 levels, is gonna introduce 2 damage magic training. Great. It's a neutral. 2 damage is pretty cool. But this does 3 at the lowest levels, and it does. No, my bad. It only does 1 range damage at the lowest levels, and that's with weapon training. The magic and weapon and range unlocks at level 4. It's an epic again, and then at level 6 you're gonna get that second range. So that's really cool for 3 mana. And if that wasn't cool enough, it's a gnome. And so Painforge, because of Razi Clangtrap, and if Painforge is proccing, that means that she's getting +1 archery and +1 magic. That can really go crazy in a fast way. That's potentially an absolute must-have game winner for 3 mana costs. I think that's a really big deal. And again, it's not just if it did those things and it didn't have Weapon Trainer, I think it's that powerful. But it has Weapons Trainer. And so you're then able to impart 2-3 damage to 2 neighboring monsters that might cost 1 or 2 mana each and provide great synergies, right? That's the other piece. And gnomes too. Like I can't even look up everything right now, but if we just go, let's just go Rebellion and Rebellion Reward, and we go non-attackers. I mean, Chaos Animator is a gnome. That's a pretty solid one right there. That's a great suggestion right there to partner with that first card. Daigen Dark Surveyor, yes please. Now hang on, they're different splinters, but they're both gnomes. And I think Nimble Duke as well. All 3 of these guys, these are crazy. These are crazy combinations. And I think when you start imagining weapon train, double weapon train, double weapon train, double weapon train, well, you can't weapon train all 3, but you see my point. Like this is an intense card for 3 mana, and I haven't even seen it before today. And so to me, it's super powerful. And one last one that I want to cover. I don't want to actually talk about Canary Keeper. I think it's, even though 3 damage for 2 is pretty cool, no thanks. I want to finish with the modification to Aerial Shieldmaid. It used to have 6 armor. They've nerfed it down to 4 at the highest levels. Here's the deal. We talked about Elias Max Pruitt a lot in this video. I think he might be coming more meta than ever. I think he might be coming out of the depths of Rebellion Summoner, Legendary Summoners into the creme de la creme, maybe right up there with Tofu. Here's another example of it. EMP can play blue, he can play life, and we talked about Armor Strike we talked about maximizing nuclear damage through Armor Strike via 2 other monsters today that are both from that same team. But the Shield Warden, Aerial Shield Maiden can, from the back line with its range, do damage, archery opportunity damage, and Armor Strike opportunity damage. So it's doing 8 damage at the highest levels, assuming you didn't armor buff it, which if you're using Elias Max Pruitt, you are going to armor buff it. That's number 3. So you're doing this card, Aerial Shield Maiden, going to be doing a 4 and a 5 because EMP is giving another armor. That's assuming you don't bring any protect. And then Warwall Juggernaut from the second position doing this stuff with 4 and 6 with the reach, and Leolin from the front line with this. All of that being encouraged and supported by Iziar backline Martyr taunt. in protecting their armors, protecting Leolin, protecting Warwall, protecting the Shield Maiden, the Aerial Shield Maiden, because the taunt will be the distraction, the Israel will be the sacrifice, and that sacrifice is a martyr, which, by the way, you could bring a resurrect on. This is a crazy synergy. Yes, that's like a higher mana team. Maybe it's a 60 mana team, but I think that is a crazy 60 mana team. I really think EMP, Elias Max Pruitt, is like so far the big winner from what we're seeing here. And I just want to close by showing some of the price differentials that we've seen on him. I think people are recognizing it. The point is, I've seen them low. 15 bucks, 12. Let's see what he is now. We can also check the marketplace a little bit. In the last month, it says on 4-week average, it's down 26%, which is astonishing to me. It was 7 days ago, it was $29.88 per BCX. 5 days ago, it was $13.88 per BCX. So it's fluctuating a lot. It was $11.75 24 days ago. And right now, the cheapest BCX is 26 per. But I mean, clearly, it has been mostly over 20 bucks. And there have been certain moments where it's been 10, 15. And I think I just showed a lot of reasons why this card's going to have a big, firm place in the moving target of what the meta is in Splinterlands. So we'll leave it there, guys. Thanks so much for your time. Hope you have an amazing day. God bless.